Pricing and discounting has the highest leverage on profitability in any company. And of course, without profit, there will be no company. So profitability is very important. Hello, my name is sjofors, and I'm also known as the Price Whisperer. That weird Swedish name doesn't translate very well to English. Anyway, pricing decisions are really high stake. Why is that? Well, because for the average company, a 1% increase in price generates 11.3% increase in profitability from 1% increase in price. On the other hand, the opposite is true when it comes to discounting. Let's say that for whatever reason, your company decide to give away another 5% in discount. And if you're like an average company, you just lost more than half your profitability. Doesn't seem like a good idea, does it? Right? So, and pricing is more effective driving profitability than increasing sales, for example, or try to further decrease the cost. So pricing is high stakes. Why then is it that pricing is often ignored by so many companies? They look at it as something to address with the hands tied behind their back, or by guessing, or using some kind of gut feel and rule of thumb, and they all leave money on the table, all of them, which is why more than 88% of American businesses leave money on the table for no reason. They they are not enjoying the profits that they should rightly have because they almost ignore pricing, right? So pricing is really high stakes, and discounting is even higher stakes in many cases, because a little bit too much discounting can kill all profitability in the company, right? So how do you really find out what to price or how to price? Well, the right way to do it is something called price sensitivity surveys. It goes out in a marketplace, and it measures what potential buyers are willing to pay for a product or service. In my company, our version of it is called predictive demand analysis, and it's quite substantially more involved than what you would get from, say, a market research company, and it's also much more precise. And you use these surveys because you can't ask customers what they're willing to pay. What would you pay for this? People will lie. Will everybody lie? Probably not. But most will lie. Most will say a number that they think is much lower than what they're actually willing to pay, should you ask the question in the right way in a predicted demand analysis survey, right? And the second thing, which is, I think this is so funny, companies are looking at their own sales data and try to determine how to set prices. And sometimes they use AI for that purposes. Sometimes they do not. But the big flaw here is that, first of all, the data is only about those who buy. Those who didn't buy, the company know nothing about. And it is those who didn't buy where most of the growth will come from. Makes sense, doesn't it? And secondly, everything a company does affects its ability to price for profit, to gain pricing power. And that could be how you market the product or service, how you target your customers, how your sales strategy, your sales channels, how you present the price to a potential buyer, and all different things. None of that is captured in the sales data. So just analyzing the sales data it may not be completely useless, but is not very effective. And in fact, um, typical results from analyzing sales data and then apply the learnings from on pricing can give 1 or 2%, no, 1, 2, or 3% increase in 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 uh, um, in profitability, right? Not nothing, but not very much, right? Whereas price sensitivity analysis or price sensitivity surveys can often generate a 25 to 40% increase in profitability, because suddenly you know much more about how customers make their decisions, and you can capture why those who didn't buy, and making adjustments to your go-to-market strategy to capture those who didn't buy, and those who didn't buy will obviously increase growth, right? And so whatever you do, but think about this, that it's from your non-buyers most growth will come from, and it's from those non-buyers that you can set your prices in such a way that profitability increases. And there's some methods in, if you go to a market research firm, they may use something called the Garber-Ganger method. I've talked about that in earlier videos, and it's a good idea, but it's very repetitive. And because it is very repetitive, it doesn't take many clicks, if you like, because this is also done online, for a potential respondents to a survey to get bored and just click randomly to get out of it. Same with something called conjoint analysis or choice-based modeling. Very repetitive, and it very quickly generate very high error rate because respondents get tired of this. Then there is something called the Van Westendorp price sensitivity meter, which doesn't give you a price; it gives you 5 prices, and it's sort of not very precise either because of that. And then the method that we developed is called predictive demand analysis, and it's based on proprietary artificial intelligence and actual business people. There's there's real human intelligence together, right? And how you do this is obviously you need to understand first that everything you do in the company, like I said, affects your ability to price. So these surveys must include that everything, right? It must include choices of different marketing messages, choices of different customer targeting, choices of different features and functions of a product or a service to see, to test, to find out which leads to the highest sales volume and revenue. It needs to include various sales methodologies and channels, various monetization strategies and options and so forth. And that means for very in-depth, very complicated surveys, right? And the descriptions you use for all this must be very concrete, very precise, and very realistic. So then, of course, you can use videos and images and all different things, but it has to be done in such a way that whoever takes that survey really understand what the subject is. And it has to be anonymous. If the survey taker can figure out who's actually doing this survey, they will lie. They will not tell the truth. And they will not tell the truth because they know that if they give away too much of what they think is valuable information to the company, that you're going to increase your prices next time they buy, and so forth. So they don't want to give that information, and by not being truthful, they don't give away the information, right? And it also needs to be targeting the right kind of buyer. And very important is to qualify and disqualify folks. And even if you can in a survey target a certain profile, still many of those with a profile just are simply the wrong people. So you have to make sure that you are eliminating those that are not exactly the right target audience. And once this is done, you have to take the information and create demand curves for this, and demand curve in general for everybody, but then per segment, per marketing message, per feature, per sales channel, per sales methodology, and so forth. Then you get the whole picture. And that becomes, again, an enormous task to do if this is not something that you do every day. So anyway, that's my short spiel. I know that this is really make a huge difference for any company, and it bothers me that so few companies are actually doing these price sensitivity surveys, and that even fewer of them do them the right way. And instead they resort to guesses or gut feel and so forth. That's not cutting it. Thank you very much for your time.